Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, well,
I agree. That was a little tricky.
okay, everyone, welcome. Thank you for coming today.
You're doing right.
Of course, I believe everybody knows what this is, a special public meeting concerning our departmental budgets. We want, under a special note, to let the public know that there will be no comments taken at this meeting. Basically, this is the commissioners wanting to get with the departments, just to let them know where we stand with our budget and where we hope that we can work with our departments to settle the budget. With that being said, we do have I'm sorry, roll please.
Mr. Malloy,
Here.
Mr. Bernard,
Here.
Mr. Hernandez.
Here. I don't know if everyone received this.
No, that's for you to read.
Yeah, I know, but I did want them to have it.
Okay.
So I will read this to you. This is on behalf of the commissioner. Commissioner Bernard, Malloy, and myself have invited you today so that you would better understand the severity of the financial situation here in our county. We are at a crossroads of managing the budget, and we would like all of you to understand why we're asking you to dig deep, scale back, which your department can efficiently run on to serve tax-paying citizens of our county. We're asking all of you to work with us to help balance this budget. We want to include you in the decision-making to suit your departmental needs. However, if we do not have your cooperation, we will have to make hard decisions with regards to your budgets for 2025. Just to speak on behalf of all the commissioners, we've been here for 3 meetings, averaging about 6 hours each, and have not been able to come up with anything. We're still about $3.5 million apart. I'd like to turn it over probably to the auditor, Martha, who can explain what you're seeing on the screen here and where we're at.
Sure. I'm going to start, Martha Yoder, Trumbull County Auditor. I'm going to start with our revenue, so you guys can see what we have, and I'm going to do some explanations on some of that as well, and also address the prevailing rumor that we have hidden money someplace, so that people understand that we're very transparent. So what we start with is our cash balance at the beginning of the year. And we also have, and that includes that $2 million donation from the clerk of court, so you understand. Our carryover encumbrances are in that as well. And so that's our, we have to subtract those from our cash balance. Our estimated resources coming into or for this year are transfers in from other funds, sales tax, which we call the undivided sales tax, that portion is 0.75. We've estimated that at a little over $24 million. We also have to take out from that the portion of that that's related to our debt. That is servicing our debt, the notes that we have, the bonds that we have. Those are that portion, that $2 million, that has to come straight off the top. Then we have our, what we call the 928 justice sales tax, 0.25%. We estimate that at $8 million. Now, when we go into these estimates, we do these estimates as conservatively as we can. It's important when you're estimating your revenue to estimate it conservatively, particularly in areas where it can be variable, right? When the economy tanks or things go down, that sales tax is going to go down. So we want to make sure that we are as conservative as we can be. We don't want to run into a problem mid-year and go, guys, we're not collecting the sales tax. We're going to have to do the cuts, right? So we want to make sure that we are as conservative as we can be. So sales tax is one of those things that's variable. Another thing that is variable is casino. Again, dependent upon the economy. We want to make sure that we allow for that. You'll note that there's what we call the Medicaid MCO fund. This was from a settlement that we had with the state when some taxes were discontinued. And we utilize that usually as a reserve type fund. That is one of those things that I'm going to talk a little bit about our reserve. We'll talk about that hidden money. We'll talk about the reserves a little bit. And that's one of those things, though, that doesn't get replenished, right? Our sales tax, our casino, those get replenished, right? Those are things that are ongoing. The Medicaid or the MCO fund, that does not. You'll note that we put that as Valley Vision. That was a commitment made 2 years ago to Valley Vision by the Board of Commissioners at that time. It's the second half of that commitment. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was recommitted to earlier this year as well. So, those are our estimated resources, a large part of our estimated resources. Then we have what we call other estimated resources. This is our original sheet. We don't have this broken down, but a portion of this. One of these are asking. So, and it's, you can check the past, it's fine. Some of these are our real estate taxes, our contracts, et cetera. But a portion of this that makes this a bit lower from last year is our estimated interest. And that's because, again, we want to be conservative. This comes from the treasurer's office. And we have two things. Interest is an uncertain thing, right? It's dependent on the interest rates. The other part of this is over the last couple of years where we had that ARPA money sitting there, that increased our interest because we were earning interest on the ARPA money while it's sitting there. That's going down. So that's going to make the interest go down as well. So those are some variables. So our total amount that we have to be appropriated for this year is about 66.5 million. Now we're not gonna pull it up, but I am gonna address the idea of what we keep in reserve. So what people sometimes refer to as hidden money.
Martha, can I
Yes.
please interject real
Sure.
quick? That 66 includes the two.
Sure, yes,
Now, we
absolutely.
received 2 million from the clerk reports.
And you
and-
receive that before the end of the year, which is why it's included in the cash. balance.
Right, so I just wanted to
Right.
make it clear that there is a $2 million load there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just so you know. Thank you.
At this point in time, we do have money in reserve, and where that comes from is that MCO tax that we talked about, that settlement, it comes from there. We have utilized that over the last couple of years for a few things that were extra items like the Valley Vision, things like that. And that balance with the Valley Vision taken out is about 3.9 million. So, and again, this is money that doesn't get replenished, right? The other part of that is our, we do keep a balance in the undivided sales tax. We have a cash balance right at this moment. Cash balance minus the sales tax transfer that we'll do including the sales tax transfer that we'll do, is about 6.5 million. The other sales tax, the justice sales tax is currently at about 1.4 million, 1.5 million. Our casino tax is 3.2 million. And again, those get replenished, but they're dependent upon collections of those things. So they can vary. So it's good for us to have a healthy balance in reserve. So that our total reserve right now is 15.3 million. That sounds like a lot of money. But if something should happen, that's at a budget of 66.5 million, that's less than 3 months operating.
Martha,
Yeah,
not to mention Alex Jonesy Bush, Human Resources Department. 1 year of anticipated premiums for healthcare, God forbid something were to happen, is 22 million. That would deplete the reserves to cover insurance, to cover employees for this county in one fell swoop.
right.
Just throwing that out. there.
And we tried to do a little bit of research to see what the recommended amount for a county our size and budget is, and we weren't real fruitful on that. But one thing we did find is that we're required to have a month's worth in our carry. Correct? Is that, and if not, that puts us in fiscal watch. So that, just so you guys understand those things. So let's move on a little bit. And so this, when we talk about that 15.3, that's what kind of people talk about. You got money hidden. We don't have money hidden. We have reserves. Yes, oh yeah, and we've been using, as we have smaller capital projects that come up, we utilize those funds, and we actually dipped into our reserves. Our reserves are lower than they were at the beginning of last year because we actually used more of the so what we would do throughout the year is use, so would collect a little more in sales tax than what we had anticipated. We would utilize those for small capital projects. And I say we, it's the board chose to use more than what we actually took in sales tax last year between the operating budget and the capital budget, slightly more, but that ate into our reserves a bit. So we ended up with less reserves at the beginning of this year than we had at the beginning of last year. Let's move on to go down to the request, that bottom line on the request, and where are the variances. So the difference between the money that we have, we project that we will have in estimated resources, and the requested appropriations is a variance of almost 15 million. The commissioners have, as Commissioner Hernandez spoke, have met along with myself and Christy 3 times over the last month or so. And we've come up with different scenarios. We've come up with different ways. We started last week with a variance of just under 2 million and ended up with a variance of over almost 4 million. So we went backwards last week. This is where we're at. I don't think I can say any more.
Right. I guess one thing too, just it sticks out to me is if we look at past, we are better in bringing money in than we did 22, 23. 2024 was a really, really good year. And we're the second best in the last 5 years. But the thing that really jumps out is there were a lot of pay raises this year, a lot of the union contracts, 4% that we had to add on to that. And the health coverage went up across the board for everybody. We absorbed that in a sense too. So those are 2 figures that jumped out at me big time.
I should, Mark, you had trouble cutting out here. I should also mention our revenues are, the jump that we had in 24 was due to the thing that people have complained about and blamed me for, our 6-year reappraisals. That helped us. We gained, I can't remember what we gained off the top of my head, but we gained money from that. However, that also doesn't go up every single year. Those property tax revenues, the inside millage that we get, that will stay steady, more or less steady, for 3 years, because there's a cycle of reevaluations. We have the 6-year mass reappraisal, which was done for 23 payable 24, which increased our revenue a bit. And also then we'll have another triennial, which will be 26 payable 27. We hope it depends on the market, right? So that's not just, so people understand, it's not the same as the mass reappraisal. It's done a little bit differently. We don't visit every single property. It's done by cost ratios and things like that. A lot of it comes from the state, not us on those. And even with the mass reappraisal that folks like to complain about, if we didn't come within aggregate, if we didn't come up to a certain percentage of what the state thought we should be, they would tell us to go back and look again, to be honest with you. We have to be within that. So there's not a whole lot of control on that. But that increased our funds. The other thing that helped us over the last couple of years, big thing that helped us over the last couple of years, is the interest. And I think Treasurer Lehman-Kusa can attest to that. We've done very well with the interest. Part of that was related to ARPA. Because we had that money there, that 38 million, we weren't spending it very fast. We were committing, but not spending. And so that makes a difference. And also we don't know what the interest rates are. So we have to be conservative. I commend Treasurer Lehman-Kusa. He has done a very good job with that over the last couple of years since I've been on. Another thing that helped us, particularly in 22, was ARPA, and we, I should say we, the board at the time, utilized just under $3 million to basically subsidize the general fund budget. And that $3 million did go for sheriff's office salaries, but it really was a subsidy of the budget. And prior to that, COVID money also subsidized our budget. So we didn't have to face some of this until now. But
Mr.
it-
Chair, I have a question. If that $2 million is in there of that 66 million, and if the commissioners are gonna set that $2 million aside to be used for maybe the sheriff or 911, so then really we don't have 66 million, we only have 64 million.
Correct, but that does
And then
affect,
our variance
right.
isn't 15 million, it's 17.
no, it's not, because we, correct me if I'm wrong, we've included that in the appropriations, the requested appropriations. Correct? So our variance is still the same amount.
So the 2 million is set aside?
The 2 million is, can you show him? The,
Right here.
Okay.
we
Designated that.
We
We didn't put
designated.
we didn't put a title on it, we just put it.
Oh.
We
money
put it
so that
under-
you could designate it as what you wanted, but it is separated.
And I brought that point up because that needs to be known, that, you know.
Can we just put that in with the reserve funds? You said the 3.9 in reserves and just move it there, and then we never have to add it and then subtract it every time?
It was donated to the general fund.
But those reserve funds
They're
aren't
not
general fund money?
No.
General fund is
They're
over
separate
one,
funds.
there's.
They are separate funds.
Okay.
So when it was donated, and I believe that was by statute, it could only be donated to the general fund.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Yeah, but
So we gotta
you
pretend like it's not there, and
but
pretend like
can't
we
we
didn't
take
take
$2
it.
million out of the general fund and put it over here for special projects?
So where we're at, and you know, where we're at currently is at a crossroads to where we have to depend on you, on our departments, to really look at your, you know, your expenditures, where you're, we realize that at some point, there could be a time that we're gonna have to reappropriate. That happens all the time. And hopefully, you know, we have the resources for reappropriation. One of our biggest expenses, the sheriff, you know. Unfortunately, there's only so much to go around. With these raises, and Alex HR explained, we know that there's some disparity there, and that we have to take that into consideration, especially with hospitalization. But if we even tried to go and look at the year prior to get those numbers prior, however, it didn't include the raises. So we understand, you know, there's a situation where we were gonna look at, hey, let's just go straight down last year, give you this budget, but it's not gonna work because those negotiated contracts came in. And I'm speaking, I'm sure on behalf of all the commissioners, that we're not here, we want to give you all the money that we can.
The other thing that I want to point out, and Chrissy and I talked about it, is that you have to be very careful, especially if things are tight and you're gonna relook at the budget mid-year, which I'm kind of think
True.
you're leaning towards.
Yeah.
You probably should have a moratorium on the small capital expenses that we pull out of that fund, so that you have enough money. Operations have to come first, unless it's a critical capital need. Operations have to come first. So that's, that's my recommendation.
All right, that's a good recommendation. That does need to be considered because we have to operate. We have to keep moving. And we know that we have,
And granted, some capital expenses are things that you need to operate, so that's why I say, except for things that are critical to operations.
And unfortunately, that is probably has to include unnecessary raises and unnecessarily adding more staff to some departments. You know, this isn't the year for that. If we can avoid it. And there are positions that by contract, union contract things we have to fill. But ones that are on the bubble, unfortunately, we'd like another person to do this, or we'd like to put additional person on, or additional, even deputies, things like that. We have to look at that and see if operating with what we have is gonna take precedence. And, you know, you read in the paper yesterday, of course, you know, we had the Board of Elections thing there with raises and stuff that was really stood out. And I think everybody understands that too. It's just at this time, stuff like that just isn't warranted with the budget that we have. We're not poor. By any means, we're not a poor county. We're not in dire needs. We're not, you know, one of the ones in any type of fiscal emergency. We just have to be fiscally responsible. And if we do that, we're in good shape. But we just have to
And
make sure the excess is held to a minimum.
for you, Trumbull County Auditor, and that's my watchword on the reserves and being very careful on tapping into those reserves. Because, and putting them down, because we don't want to be in that position. But I also need to remind you that we'll have raises, we have to look at, I know today we're focused on this budget. Next year, unless you figure out some things, we're gonna be in the same position and possibly the worst position. As I said, revenues are stagnant. Now, I'm as hopeful as Commissioner Malloy that some of that's gonna change with regard to sales tax and things like that as we get development. However, that takes time. I don't know how much time. So we may be sitting here again next year. I'm just explaining this to you so you understand, and also explaining to our department heads and our other public officials that on our end of things, as a fellow public official, people need to start looking for other sources of revenue, like we are doing. People need to put measures in place to reduce spending on things outside of payroll, because that is something we can control. Those nibble around the edges though. So I don't like to be, most people that know me know I'm an extremely optimistic person with a very positive outlook on life. But I'm also a very realistic individual. Who's been kicked around a little bit in my life, so I know crap happens. So we have to be ready. That's
And that's the reason why we were assembled here. You know, the commissioners that felt that we needed to get across to you where we're at here, what we've been trying to do to manage this budget. It's not working. And we're gonna need really all the help we could get. We're gonna need you to go back, crunch some numbers, and hit us with some reasonable.
what I did, and because I thought we were kind of doing that for today, but we'll save it for when you guys are ready for it. What my staff, my chief deputy, my senior accountant, Christy, and I, is we went down, we reviewed that budget, our budget, line by line. And we shaved it to a place, what I call our bright line, right? That bright line, below that bright line, we would need to do layoffs. And then there's another bright line, and that other bright line for us is if we reduce it beyond that bright line, we are talking about reducing, we are talking about eating into mandated services. And for our office, services critical to the operation of the county, because our office is in charge of IT. This county runs on IT. So when we get, we have to keep a certain level in order to keep this county going. So I have two bright lines on what I will present to you when we're ready, where one is below this point, we have to start laying off. Below this point, we cannot reduce anymore, because otherwise we'll eat into what's mandated and required by law for us to do and what's critical for this county. I suggest that everybody do that.
I like that idea, to come up with where our departments, like Auditor Yoder had said, you get to a point to where here we are, bare bones, and here's layoffs. And of course, we don't want to talk layoffs. We don't want to go there. We hope that we don't have to go there. But to get it to that level,
You may have to.
Well,
I wanna
it's
be a
not,
realist here.
I know it's
I
not,
have to
Can't
be
rule it
the
out.
voice of reality here. I have to be. And we're looking at other things that we can do as well, but this is, I always like to say, I said this when I had my own business, and I said it when I was a trustee, we have to start from where we are. We have to be real. Where we are, if we don't have those cost cutting measures in place, we don't have those things. We have done some, and I will share what we've done. As cost saving measures that we implemented already. You know that I have a chief deputy auditor. Mr. Hannaford never received an additional pay raise for his duties, and he's been frozen. His pay is frozen. We implemented no overtime or comp time for our employees unless there's a critical need for the county. And every single purchase that comes from my office or from IT has to have my personal. The three things that we started, and we've got more.
and I may add that, you know, in commissioners, as far as our maintenance department, we have cut
Yes.
all overtime unless it's absolutely necessary.
Well,
You know,
we had.
Well, I mean, yes, well,
We had to-
but we had a retirement too, so
we had-
Danny's doing as best as he can.
and we put that in as a critical need for the county, at that critical need, because if we have a server go down, we can't go, no overtime, because if we have a server go down, we have 911 relying on us, we have the sheriff's office, jail relying on us. And what people don't really fully realize is that the IT portion of what we do is 24, where we have to be available 24/7. It's needed 24/7. A lot of people think this county only runs 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, but there are lots of parts of this county that run on the weekends and in evenings, and we have to be able to support that. And unfortunately, a lot of, just for my part of this is, a lot of what I ask for in our general fund budget, a lot of this, more than half of those salaries are IT. And there's no place else I can get that. That's one thing that some office holders have other places where they can move some people to. I don't have that room.
Alex Stephen Johnson Bush, Human Resources Department Auditor Yoder brings up a good point. She does tend to take a break. She's speaking on behalf of her department, but I am here to speak on behalf of everybody and what we see here. So just sitting here listing off, IT is 24/7, maintenance department is 24/7, 911 is 24/7, our jail is 24/7, our deputies are 24/7. When I look at everything that hits those, all of those things hit the general fund. Our dog kennel could be 24/7 at any given time. Our coroner could be 24/7. We really need to start looking at this as it's not just us and our departments, and I'm not saying that against
I
you.
understand.
I am just saying that bottom line is, these raises weren't new, guys. I know you want to keep saying that they were. There's been raises before this every year in contracts. Anybody correct me if I'm wrong. Has there ever been a wage freeze before this year? No. Healthcare was continuing to rise, have been continuing to rise. It is not anybody's fault here that it was frozen to 2018. I can't accommodate for that. We fixed it going forward, okay? It is what it is. So at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we're being cognizant that everybody here is just as equally as important. I am not saying we're ranking one over the other. I don't think the Board of Commissioners is saying that by any means either. But we can't have all these projects. I hear you, Judge, I know, but what are we supposed to do? We don't have the funds. I can't have maintenance working hundreds of thousands of dollars overtime because we are showing you, we don't have the funds. We don't. And that's at double time. Sometimes it was at holidays where they were it was astronomical. So we all need to put our heads together and collectively work extremely hard to figure out how we figure this out together.
Totally agree, Trumbull County Planning, just because I'm old. I know that in 2005, we had playoffs and we did have a wage freeze for, I think, 5 straight years. I just wanted to, 6 years, I just wanted to clarify for the county that it did occur.
But not in the past 10. I mean, there's, what we're trying to say is these raises are what's attributing to this. There has been consistent.
Oh,
raises.
absolutely, but it is cumulative, so people like myself lost out on wage increases for 6 years, and other people have been here for a very long time. And I'll bring it up one more time. I think it's worth looking at, not just for myself, I have jokingly said this, but people with longevity, looking at the cost effectiveness of early retirement centers.
And Mark, the other
Because-
Trumbull County auditor, that's one of the things that.
Thanks.
And we're trying, I actually spent about 45 minutes on hold with OPERS this morning, and then I had to cut it off to be able to come up here. But I'm trying to get as much information as I can on that will benefit not just me, but the whole county. But since I was the one interested in it, we kind of did that. We're trying to get details.
I was gonna say Alex Stevens, Johnson Bush, Human Resources Department. We are working on it. We're trying to get details, but we have to be very clear. Whether there's things that we're working on. So this is not a one shoe size fits all. We have to be able to delineate is, can an elected official on their own offer it, or does it have to be offered by the Board of Commissioners? That's a decision that we need to give them over
Right,
to
that's-
understand.
And I'll keep working.
And then furthermore, we have to understand that not everybody would hit general fund. So if you're offering, that's another delineation. Everybody really needs to understand those funding sources. So even if we were to offer some sort of retirement incentive program, it would not behoove necessarily, it would behoove if we could help free the general fund up of that money. But if it's other revenue sources that aren't utilizing.
However, I will say, in looking at it, specifically for us, I will say that one of the things that happens is that it frees up, it frees up other sources, and
It does.
maybe if you can move things to other sources,
It does, but we also have to be cognizant of what the return, okay, so
the ROI.
yes, how much we would be then paying out in order to accomplish that. We have not looked at any of that yet. I just want to be clear because I know Julie and Martha just spoke to it. And I'm here to advocate for everybody and be very clear that, yes, maybe certain departments are looking at it, but we as a board and HR need to look at it holistically once we get to that point and make sure it's a valid option. And we will, because I think it might be.
And one of the things that, as I looked at it, is we see, I see some short-term benefits. And also then long-term benefits, which when we're talking about next year, this is one of those moves that may help us next year. So we're in less of this position, right? So, but it does cost money to do this. So there's a cost to buying out someone's retirement that may or may not help our bottom line this year. It may adversely affect our bottom line this year.
That's what.
And then be better next year.
Right.
And there's two parts to this for any of us, and I'm talking general. So you may have within your offices positions that you would like to eliminate that are difficult to eliminate because of because of union constraints and CPAs and things like that. If someone retires, you can choose not to fill that position. So that long-term ROA is greater. The other part of this is also, you may have positions where then, this is more what Julie was speaking to, where you're going to replace them with someone with less seniority, so less costly employee. And that's still helpful. But perhaps not as much over the course of years. And again, we have to factor in how much it costs. And that's sort of one of the things that the first question that we wanted to find out was, does it have to be countywide or can it be by appointing authority? There's more flexibility if it's by appointing authority, because there may be people who this isn't going to help, right? There may be offices or departments that this won't help. The ROI is not good at all for them. Some of our offices that run a little leaner may not benefit from this. And there is the cost of institutional knowledge. And you have to weigh that, because sometimes, particularly for some of our new office holders, they're relying on institutional knowledge. And I'm not gonna,
That's why Julie can't retire.
Mr. Gargano has a,
John Gargano, JFS. I don't think, speaking to what Auditor Yoder said, that it has to be countywide, because back in the 1977, but then also again, it was in the 2000.
201, maybe.
Yeah, in that 2000 area, there were departments that had buyouts. And I could say that JFS had a buyout at that time. And I can't remember if it was also child support at one time.
There was a couple courts too as well. There was, I believe, 2 court systems that had it as.
But
And the
back
two of
then-
you are making my case about institutional knowledge.
That's the beauty of having us here is
Yeah.
we're 3
But,
guys with less than 2 years experience. We got guys
appreciate
here with
that.
careers.
but again,
so.
because it was a while ago, we want to make sure that nothing's changed in that.
No, I understand it,
So,
but I just
I
wanted to bring
appreciate
it
that
out.
because that's helpful knowledge for us to know. And like I said, between the 2 of us, Alex and I will get as much research on this, but as I said earlier, we start from where we are.
Right.
And we have to do that, we have to do that right now. So again, this is something that could help us in the short term this year and could over the next couple of years help us to become a little leaner if we need to.
Alex Stephen Bush, I just didn't want to kind of take us down, I don't want to say a rabbit hole, but at the end of the day, it is something that we are looking at. We, of course, will keep the board abreast, but right now, we're here. So even if we were to, somehow implement that tomorrow, that's still not gonna make this any better, okay? We gotta get to here, okay?
Agreed.
Mr. Chairman, what I would like to see done as one commissioner, I hear about all these mandatory services that each office holder has to have. I would like to have them put that on paper so I can see what that number is in each office. So then we can tell exactly where we're at mandatory and go from there. Because I hear what you say, I hear what the sheriff says, I'm gonna hear what the judges have to say. Everybody is telling me that they have mandatory services that cost X amount of dollars.
Right,
I, as one commissioner, I want to know what that figure is.
sure. And I
So if everybody would give us that, I would appreciate that.
And that's part, when I talk about Martha and Trumbull County Auditor, when I talk about my 2 bright lines, that's what I'm saying.
Right, and I would like everybody's.
Sure.
Because that would give us at least a number, so we know that where we're at, because we don't know where that number is.
Sure.
At least I don't know where it's at.
And I personally don't think we're that far off right now. We did go down, we did knock things down from 10 million to 4 million. We actually got to 1.6. We looked at some of the things, we got back up to about 4. But I believe.
I wanna remind you, just,
I don't, hold on 1 second. I believe when we reevaluate this later in the year, I think, I'm believing in the county that people are gonna shop here more. We've got some industry growing. We got, mall developers don't put up new stores if they don't think they're gonna make money off it and think times are coming bad. We have to read the time of the economic indicators that are out there. And I think we're gonna do pretty good on sales tax this year, maybe better than what we speculate. I mean, fingers crossed on that, but if things go the way they are with the economy, I think things are slowly gonna get better and better and better every month, including utility rates and everything else. I'm optimistic that way, but I believe things are trending in the right way for that. When we see the stuff with industries that are requiring to come here, we meet with the Chamber of Commerce, Port Authority, Eastgate, there's a positive feeling of growth that is coming our way. And it involves housing, it involves bodies. It is gonna take time to do that, but I'm a little more optimistic that we're not that far off. So when we're looking at bare minimums, if we all went down to bare minimums, we'd have a huge overflow of money left over, I believe, if we were just at bare minimums. We're not at bare minimum, but we're not at growth and gluttony stage of things. We just need to tighten our belts and work within our budget responsibly.
Well, first of all, we as a board, we went through and we made some cuts that a lot of people don't know what those cuts are.
Right, that was gonna be my
And
point.
so they have to realize what we've done so far, and now we're asking them to make another cut. And I'm optimistic too, but I think we have to be realistic. though.
Well-
We have to, we have X amount of dollars, and we can't, I think that's one of the problems that the county was always on an if-come basis, okay? We can't set a budget on if-come. We have to set a budget with how many dollars we have.
Right,
And that's why I go back to my request. I want to know what everybody's mandatory services are, how much money we have, and sit down there and do it. Okay, I hope we get an extra $10 million. But I don't know if that's gonna happen. And all this industry that's coming in, that's all gonna take time to generate all that money, I mean, I don't want to mention names, but that takes time. And we just, we have to be honest with ourselves and we have to be honest with each department and each office over here. This is the hand that we were dealt. And
You have
nobody
to
likes
play it. You have to play
You
it.
have to
I
play
say
it.
that all the time.
And I don't like it. Commissioner Hernandez doesn't like it. Danny, I'm sure you don't like it, but, you know, we have to, you know, we're calling all these people and we have to tell them, we have a problem.
So to add to it, as you say, they don't know the cuts and they may be below the bright lines. And that's what,
That's why we know.
so it might be in Trumbull County auditor. Yeah, so that's why I think, even though it seems like we're starting again, and because we are, I think what Commissioner Bernard wants is legitimate. I think what I would recommend that the board set a date for that to be turned in, and whether you want it to us so that we can put it up on these, we can. Or to put all of us, right? Maybe.
If it goes to you, it'll come to us.
Yeah, we'll get it to you,
Yeah.
But I think you guys need to set a deadline for these folks to do that, and I think some people have already started that because of the initial email. But a deadline and then set another meeting. That's my
And
recommendation.
time's running out. We have to-
It absolutely
you know,
is.
The budget's gonna have to be passed when? March 1st or?
No, April.
Well,
April 1st, the last meeting before April 1st is my birthday, March 26th, and I would like to have an early birthday present, not a birthday.
Sam Lemakusa, Trumbull County Treasurer. First off, thank everybody for complimenting the interest earnings earlier in the meeting. And I have a chief deputy that does an outstanding job with our budget. She has the answers prepared for you currently that we will present. But I have to say this out loud. I don't want to say it out loud, but I have to say it out loud. I'm not optimistic at all. I'm a realist, okay? And the true reality of life is my budget is represented by 89.5% of payroll costs. Okay, so I'm working with 11% to keep my life going in the county treasurer's office. Paper costs today are 47% higher than they were in 2008. Okay, my major cost is mailing out tax bills. I spend $90,000 a year mailing out tax bills. Take that out of my 11%, I'm down to spending about $4,000. I guess what I'm getting to is the realistic Sam Lemakusa is coming forward to say there is no cuts to make once we get to the point where we can't support the budget that we need. If the revenue isn't there to give us the monies we need, the only realistic avenue is bodies, is employee cost. I represent an office that when I came to work here, I was brought here by my predecessor because the county was facing the same thing they're facing today. They were worried they didn't have enough money. They were worried their budgets were too fat. Sam, get in here, help the treasurer's office with our budget and everything. When I came here in 2001, treasurer's office had 21 employees. Today it has 13. 11 including me. It needs to be 12 because the 11 including me does physical work in that office every day. Being up here right now is hurting my office because I had an employee off sick. And when that employee's off sick, I do that employee's work. So now I'm behind already downstairs today. Okay, I'm not saying all of this to brag, to blow smoke up my rear end. It don't have to happen. In 200 days, I'm gone. Okay, I don't need the glory or anything. What I'm saying is the reality of life is that we have to do everything we possibly can to tighten up these budgets. I don't know where anything else can be done. I don't see it, and I mean, my postage machine became outdated. Instead of buying a new postage machine, I went to the county auditor and said, can we share postage machines? I mean, since the day I walked in here in 2000, I've been complaining that this whole county needs one post office, a central post room, instead of every office having a mail machine, paying service contracts, paying all of that for every one of those mail machines. But the reality of life is people from across the street don't want to walk across the street when there's 6 inches of snow on the ground to do their postage. The reality of life is people, then we're gonna, well, where are we gonna put the postage room? If we put it on the first floor, the people on the 5th floor will have to fight to get to the first floor, blah, blah, blah. It's the world. It's the realistic part of the world. It's Sam being realistic. I don't mean nothing wrong by it. I understand why almost every office has a postage machine. Because then you don't have to put up with, well, I don't want to walk over there to do my mail. I don't want them coming here at 2:30 to do their mail when we're trying to get this done and all of that done. So those are the realistic things of life. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. If we have to, we will come with a different number, but the only reason we're going to come with a different number is we have now finalized our pays for our vacation pays and payouts and everything and so forth. So our payroll number will be down slightly. It's not down enough to affect this basis. The number I turned in was a raw number. It was a bottom line number that I turned in. The auditor said it earlier, the realistic part of life might be that you'll be looking at layoffs. I lived this in what Mr. Gargano brought up back in 2000 and when we had buyouts, because we lived through this in 2000 when there wasn't enough money to pay everybody. Well, we got to come up with a program. I'm kind of the guy that came on board at the treasurer's office to offer buyouts. So that's why I know the answer when the year comes up. But it's the reality of life. Your major costs in government world, I don't care if you're running McDonald Village, if you're running the city of Warren, if you're running Trumbull County, your major cost in life, in government life, is employee cost. And we're here to do a public service. And when I start cutting them, I'm not providing the public the proper service. That's the next part of the problem. Thank you.
You know, and I would like to remind everybody here too, and Sam, and you and I have had conversations on this. Mahoning County has special levies for their sheriff's department. They have special levies for their road department. It generates over $33 million a year in special levies to run that sheriff's department and these other departments. Like the treasurer saying, at some point, you know, we're not going to promote this right now to do it. We have to generate more monies, whether that is levy based or whether that is sales tax based. We're going to have to look at crunch some numbers. Trumbull County has the lowest sales tax within this area. Columbiana County, Mahoning County, it's not changed. Former administrations have promoted the fact that they've never raised the sales tax. This is why we are where we're at today. So keep in mind, listen, it's not politics for me. It's being realistic. The realistic fact is, and Sam, you had mentioned at one time, I don't mean to put you on the spot. You thought that there should be a 0.5% raise in the sales tax. I believe that a quarter would suffice to bring an additional $8 million in this general fund to keep this county moving the way that it should move. Mahoning County does it with levies. I'm not promoting to put levies.
They
Go
have
ahead.
special assessments.
Special
And they-
assessment levies.
And they also
They're not levies that.
Okay, they're special
and they do
assessments.
have a higher sales tax.
So it's a special assessment for the sheriff's department alone.
No, we had a special assessment for 911. I live in Mahoning, Christie Sesteric Auditor's Office. I live in Austin. And on my tax law, I have a special assessment for 911, but not for Sheriff's Office.
Well, I heard
The
that they
Sheriff's
were,
Office has not the Sheriff's Office. Mahoning County has a 0.75% justice
The-
sales tax.
so the sales
which
tax
funds
that funds the sheriff.
And the Mahoning County
Okay.
also segregates their sheriff, coroner, prosecutor, and 911. They're not part of their general fund, they're in a separate fund called Justice Administration. And they're funded by that 0.75 justice sales tax grants and
Right,
contracts.
so just to put, to put it to rest, we're gonna have every township, every city arguing the fact that, oh, no, we can't, we're gonna have a resolution, we're not gonna do. Listen, we aren't gonna play politics here. The bottom line is, we have to generate more money. You're talking about these layoffs, you're gonna put a lot of pressure on this county to offer the proper services that we should be offering our county. That's,
Martha, Trumbull County Auditor, we would have been at this place sooner, were it not for ARPA, COVID money,
right,
and the interest rate. Would have been where we are right now several years ago, were it not for COVID, were it not for that.
Commissioner Alex, Stephen Jency Bush, I want to make sure that we're looking at the dollars, because it's actually up there. So the sales tax, the 0.25 that you get for the police services, so that goes to support our courts, our prosecutor, our 911, our sheriff's department. Is 0.25 of what we bring in sales tax only equates to $8 million.
Right.
When
so
the
it does
sheriff's
not
department is
cover
asking
all
for,
of-
right, and this is no fault to anybody, but when our services that the sheriff is saying are mandated are at 19.5 million, that $8 million's already gone. That leaves nothing for our prosecutor's office, that leaves nothing for our courts, that leaves nothing for our coroner, I'm sorry, Dr. D'Amico, I'm so sorry, 911. The 8 million is the 8 million. It's right there. Even at last year, we were slightly up at 8.8. And again, I know that this is a conservative estimate, what's gonna come in, but 8
So
million.
the 8.8 is, that includes our capital projects.
Okay.
Okay, so Martha, Trumbull County Auditor, if you recall, we said when we brought in excess, we use that for those small capital projects.
yeah, and I don't wanna get off track with this.
And you're right, too. When we look at Little Portage County
Right.
next to us, they have the exact same budget we have. They're 1/4% higher on their sales tax than we are.
Well, I just wanna be, I wanna make sure that everybody's clear on it. You can see what little amount comes in to fund all of these services. And I think what everybody has said here, just to round this out, so we can get to the meat and potatoes and show everybody where they're at, because everybody here needs to know where they've already funded. But at the end of the day, the money that we have is the money that we have. It's right there. Everybody can see it. We're being transparent. That's what's anticipated. Outside of that, it now becomes a question of, to Treasurer Mancuso's point, how do you offer these phenomenal public services that we offer when that's your budget? That's the end, that's it. Commissioner, but I guess we should keep rolling.
Anybody have any comments, any departments at all? Casey?
Casey McDonough, 911 director. Just to kind of jump on what Sam was saying, I mean, it sounds like you went from 21 employees to 11. I mean, I've only been here a year and a half, and consistently what I'm hearing with 911 is we've been running, at least 10 to 15 below staff for the last 10 years. When Patty took over as an intern, she made no purchases for 2 years while she was intern because she didn't want to do things that she didn't know maybe the new director might want to take a different direction. And she didn't know where they were at. Additionally, she was finding things that weren't budgeted for from previous administration that she had to find money for. There were several contracts where she'd make $90,000 purchases and pay for radio services that weren't budgeted for. So when you're talking making cuts, I'm kind of in the same boat as Sam. With us being public safety, we're not a for-profit entity. We're a customer service-based entity. We don't make money. There's no revenue generation there. We're obviously not funded at the state level. The 25 cents for cell phones is not enough. That needs to be looked at the state level. So when we're looking to try to make cuts, we changed over our copy machines. We redid those contracts. We saved a little bit of money there. We're trying to minimize, we're trying to go paperless, to try to reduce those costs there. But as far as staffing, we're already below, we're at 17 right now, and we should be at least 30. And I don't see us getting to that point. So for us to make cuts, it's not really gonna happen. And the issue that we have is our department's been neglected for so many years by the can getting kicked down the road. We need new servers. That's $130,000. We just bought some new monitors and computers because ours were 8 years old. I spent $50,000 last year of money. We kind of scraped and scrimped so we could do those things. We obviously need a new building. I'm sure there's a lot of waste there just in the general cost of maintenance of that building and lack of maintenance of that building. But making cuts for our department as well. We're kind of stuck where we haven't had any increases in the last 8-10 years. And there were 4 contracts where people were given raises, yet our budget never increased to cover those wages. So we're kind of in the same boat.
Martha Yoder, Trumbull Auditor, I do want to, because this credit sales tax got brought up, I do want to just, so that the commissioners understand this, that even if you were to do a sales tax, the amount of time that it would take to implement it would, and I'm not saying anyone's doing it, but the amount of time that it would take to implement it, the soonest we would receive any money from that would be September. And the amount that we would receive would not be $8 million, it would be about 2.67. Just so you guys understand the impact, and every department and of public officials understands what that impact is. So what happens, we collect, it would be collected, probably, again, it would depend on when it was passed and things like that. Probably collected, start collecting July 1st. We receive 2 months later, so it would be received, and what we budget is when we receive it, not when it's collected. So it would be September through the end of the year, and that would be about 2.67.
Sam, I'm acoustic Trumbull County Treasurer. That might be the life preserver that you do need though to save this year's budget.
I understand that, but I want, and that's why I wanted them to hear.
I appreciate your breakdown of it, but that may be your life preserver right there. I mean, I heard earlier in the meeting that you've got it dwindled down. At one point, you had it dwindled down to about $1.5 million. Now it's back up to about $4 million. A 2.6 life preserver might save this year's budget.
That's
And put it in, kick in, we've heard the terminology, kicking stuff down the can, or kicking the can down the road, I don't know. You know, if this issue keeps getting kicked down the road, then it's not this year, and then it's next year, then it's the year after. I got to spend a large amount of time with my grandfather. And I lost grandpa at age 7, and I miss him to today at age 69. But grandpa said, when you get cut, put the Band-Aid on it, and it's gonna get better, and just go on. I think I'm saying the same thing. If you're gonna do something, get it done, put the Band-Aid on and go on. That's it.
Yeah, but I think we're sending this mixed signals as far as what I read. And I'm not picking on you, Denny, but you're saying county's in decent financial shape. And then we have Commissioner Hernandez saying that we need a tax increase. I think those two statements are sending mixed signals out to the taxpayers of Trumbull County.
But I think if we tighten our belt, we could be steady. We know there's 3% raises coming next year based on the contracts we already have.
4%.
Well, some 4, some are 4.33. There's a variety of that we have.
Commissioners, I just want to be very clear. We're stuck on that 4%. I have 13 contracts. There's other contracts.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
that
just
have
throwing an average
5%,
out
that have 5%. I don't know what's, it's not just 4%.
There's gonna
But we know costs are gonna go up, is what we're saying. We know right now we're at a baseline. Everyone's telling us there's nowhere much more to cut. If there's nowhere more to cut, we either gotta cut or we gotta raise the income. If we can't raise the income by other ways, which we're trying here, if it comes down to laying people off or implementing a 0.25% sales tax, I'll tell you, I gotta say, I don't wanna lay anybody off in the county. I think everyone's important. I think we provide a great service. I don't wanna say we're taking deputies off the roads in Kinsman and Johnson and Mesopotamia and Bloomfield. I'm not gonna do that if there's another option. Now, do I wanna raise the sales tax? Absolutely not. But it comes down to the thing, just like with the water rates. We can keep them steady as long as we possibly can, but eventually we're gonna have to pay the cost of living.
But you're saying one thing and Commissioner Hernandez is saying another thing.
Because I don't think we're at that point yet to pull the parachute, is what I'm saying.
But to me, we're sending mixed signals out there.
No, and I understand what you're
We have
saying.
a financial problem here. I think we have to be honest to our constituents and the
Right.
taxpayers and say, look, we do have a financial problem.
Exactly,
All right,
we do. And
and that, if you raise the income tax,
Sales tax.
that's not gonna help us until later on.
Well,
So we have to
Treasurer
base
Lamb
this
Kuzi
budget
said it
on
would
what,
put,
so we have to base this budget on what we have
I don't
Okay,
disagree. I
and-
don't
And
disagree.
then try to correct later problems down the road. okay?
And that's why I'm bringing this up now, because we need to set seeds as to where we are.
But we have to be
I
honest.
don't
We have to
believe-
be honest with her.
Absolutely. I mean, we're gonna end up taking, a lot of heat even mentioning sales tax. It's not gonna happen right now. But we have to look down the road as to where we're at today and with expenses and with inflation and with paper cost and computers and escalating hospitalization. This is not gonna get any better. So we are gonna have to pay attention to it.
And we have
Maybe
to
not
show,
now.
and we have to show the public that we did do all we could do.
And that's why we're here today.
Right,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
right, I mean,
I
we have
agree.
to make the hard decision cuts.
Yes, and I'm not so optimistic. I know, Denny, I know there's a lot of things coming up around the corner where maybe we'll generate some income. But I really don't believe it's gonna be the type of income that this county is gonna need moving forward. Hey, listen, we may be out of here in 4 years, but we have a job to do to make sure that this county is protected and safe. And you can't start taking away from the sheriff. You can't start taking away from 911. We've got capital expenditures with dog pounds, corner. We got the corner working in the garage.
Here's my goal, and I think it's your goal too. We don't want to leave, whenever we leave here,
Right.
what we found.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Yes.
We don't want to do that to anybody. all right?
Yes. That's why we're making these hard
Well,
calls.
right, but we have to get everything in line first, okay? Show the people, just.
I absolutely agree 100% with you.
And there are gonna be some hard decisions that we're not gonna.
And I agree. I think this board's legacy, it wants to be, we end the can kicking. This board is the one that
Yep.
starts from scratch, brings everything up to par. We may take the heat over it. We may take bad media over it. We may have people saying, don't, especially in a trustees year when they're up for election themselves. Of course, nobody wants to raise taxes. I don't want to raise taxes. I don't want to raise water rates. I don't want to raise anything. I think we're taxed too much right now in the world as we are. But the bottom line is, we could be like the old boards and keep kicking it down the road and let someone else worry about it. Or we could be the ones that say, the buck stopped here. This board here stopped here. We started from scratch and we're setting ourselves up for the future, doing things the right way.
Martha?
And again, though, we have to be truthful to the taxpayer out there, okay? If they see that we've done everything we could do,
Right.
okay? And then we go to them and say, hey, we need help. But until they feel that confidence, I don't think that I
The
can
only-
go to them.
The only thing I would agree with you, I agree with you 100%, Commissioner. The only thing is, people never understand.
Well,
Because it's when it's coming out of their pocket.
We've never tried to make them
Oh,
understand.
no, we're at this is where we're at now.
So I don't want to the point too. There's a lot of politicians and a lot of political entities, trustees, legislators that try to scare the hell out of the public. Take the police away, take this away, make them hurt, make them feel the pain so they pass the tax. I'm not gonna be that guy either. We're gonna be realist with this.
Right.
We are gonna lead by example. We are gonna cut where we can cut and lead by example. When the next step comes and we have to make the next decision, we're gonna make it responsibly when
And
that
I
time
said this from
comes.
the beginning, the sheriff's department and 911 should not be cut. We need those two services exactly where they're at. They need more, we can't give them more. We gotta make sure we don't cut any more from them.
Hopefully mid-year, we have resources to be able to reappropriate, refund,
If
their
that happens,
service. Yeah.
right, if
I
that
hope,
happens,
I'm
but-
prayerful that it'll happen. Yes, Auditor,
Martha, you're a Trumbull County Auditor. So gentlemen, when is your deadline and when is your meeting? Let's move forward.
well, we're really gonna need our
Well,
department.
Do we want to show where we were to get to that last 3 million?
We can do that, but I think it would be better to take the temperature of all these departments and officers' offices. I don't want to discount the work that we did, and we certainly can keep that in mind when you meet again. But I think, and if they want to know where we were at, that's fine, but I think they should start from where they started. And like I did, that's exactly what I did. I didn't take where you had me at, as I pointed out to you last week. In all of this, I had not had time to look at my own budget, because I've been looking at the global. So I think it might be better to just hear from them. Bright line, bright line.
I mean, I like the idea. Listen, you get to a point to where you're at the layoff
And then
level.
see where we're at.
I agree. I mean, we've had what, 4 meetings here and
Mhm.
and we sit here and
Right.
no matter,
This gives them
no
their
matter
voice.
what approach we make, we always come back to the same thing.
This gives them their voice and we can see where we're at in our variance with that.
You're about 47 days away from needing a fixed
Yep.
budget.
Yes.
How close was my number?
I don't know exactly on the date, I'm sorry.
So
Pretty
commissioners,
close.
if that's what you want to do, which is why they're here today, which is why we're all here today, Alex, Stephen, Nancy, Bush, I'm sorry, Human Resources Department. You also need to be prepared, commissioners. I want to be very loud and clear on this. You need to be prepared that you potentially might get back what they gave you in the first place, and that some of them may come back and say, that is what I need to operate.
That's why I kind of wanted to show it to them, so if they see it, they're like, no, and they can just start justifying.
We're just running out of time.
I think,
But we have to tell them that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think
that just can't work. Even
I
if we
think-
want to give it to them, it's not gonna work.
part of what we need, Mark, to go from County Auditor, I think part of what we need to do, and I had a narrative for you as well, is to do that narrative to explain what the services are, although I will add a little bit to mine. I explained about the IT being critical, right? We need to be able, you guys need to be able to pick up your phone, we handle those. You guys need to be able to write your emails, your computers need to turn on to do the work, right? So that's where it's not necessarily mandated, but it is critical, right? And we can talk, list the mandated services that we provide and how we provide them, so you guys can see that. I think bright line, best way to do this. And so we know where we're actually at, but I think it needs to be done as soon as possible. So I would suggest today, it's Thursday, thank you, it's the 13th, I would suggest, a Monday deadline, or I'm sorry, Tuesday deadline, because we're not here to, on Monday, Tuesday deadline. And a meeting, Thursday is your regular meeting. Correct.
Is that gonna give them enough time to do it though?
Well, I think some folks, to be honest with you, because of what was set out,
Right.
I think some folks probably have it already close to being ready, or maybe tweak it a
So
bit.
commissioners, Alex, Stephen, Johnson, Bush, that's why I was asking you last week before we left here, what you wanted me to do in that email, because it was really important to get the ball rolling for these department heads, because I do, to Auditor Yoder's point, I know how long this takes. I do my budget myself, although it's not up there because I'm not general fund. I have a $22 million budget. I know what it takes. I understand. I have a lot of empathy for all of our department heads who are trying to just provide a service every day on top of, trying to work with us on this. So I wanted to give them that foresight of, here's what you're going to need to do. I heard that very loud and clear from you. I heard that very loud and clear from you, and I heard that very loud and clear from you. So I gave them that email roughly, I think, Friday of last week. So hopefully everybody heard that loud and clear. And although some people may not have understood the message of that, I think now this coupled with the email that had already been sent out, explaining in detail what we just talked about here, hopefully we can get to that place sooner than later. And we don't really have a choice. It's about time.
I just kind of did a little conversation with Christy to see how quickly we could have things ready for you once we got them. If you want to extend that deadline to Wednesday and meet Thursday,
Martha, just give her.
I'm sorry, Martha Yoder, Trumbull County Auditor. If they get them to us Wednesday morning, we would be able to have everything on a spreadsheet for you for a meeting Thursday afternoon, after the regular.
Good with that.
I'm good with it. I
Set the Thursday special meeting for 1 o'clock Thursday and give them a deadline of 10 a.m. Wednesday to get it in.
no, it's, will you work with Lisa to allow her to send out these notices, our clerk? Lisa,
Julie Green, I just have a quick question. So for what you're expecting us to just give you the budget that we submitted and then the revised budget, is that what you're requesting?
Yes, in your revised budget, what we kind of want is what is mandatory that you absolutely,
So-
like she said, make.
So I think actually it's a little more little more in depth than what you just said.
Okay.
When I say bright line, for what I did, what we was, we took our original request, we shaved it to, if we go below this line, we have to lay off.
Right.
And then beyond that, where we would have to, would not, but the point at which we would not be able to provide our mandated, or in our case, critical because of IT services. So we had three numbers, our original budget, the bright line, first bright line, and the second.
Thank you.
When we put our payroll in, I put like, no, like I didn't, approximate higher, I put the exact dollar amount of what we're calculating. Christie's Hysteric Auditor's Office, I'm so sorry, I used the spreadsheet that Alex provided with all of the, the wages and the PRS, Medicare, and an exact dollar amount.
Yeah, Julie Green, Trumbull County Planning. Just one more comment, really not a question. My job's easier because I have 7 staff people like myself. However, I imagine that the prosecutor's office is going to get a lot of calls asking what is mandated and what is not mandated. We went through this exercise in during COVID with emergency operations, like what is considered an essential. I would, I don't believe any of our services are mandated. However, if they're not done through our office, they would need to be done elsewhere.
And
So-
that would fall in that critical, an explanation of why it's critical.
Okay, so you would like to know if they're mandated by law or not, or just if they're considered critical services?
I think both of those things are important, but an explanation of why they're
Sure.
critical, so the commissioners understand.
Sure, okay, thank you. Clarifying.
Alex,
Oh.
Alex, Johnson Bush, Human Resources Department. I think it's extremely important to, Julie makes a good point, even if, during COVID, we're technically labeled essential, non-essential. I get that, but I think it's extremely important for each department to note to the Board of Commissioners, although this may not be mandated, they should be made aware of, if we forego this service, this is what's going to happen, X, Y, Z, and the pros and cons of all of this, so they can make the best, most informed decisions with the cuts.
And we're not asking anyone to throw themselves under the bus either. We're not gonna say, okay, well, he says this, they're only gonna lose this, so let's cut out of his budget instead of hers. We're not gonna do that by any means either. I don't want them to get the impression of, where they all clam up to find the most mandatory stuff they can find, and they're afraid to tell us the rest because they look like they're surrendering that money. We're not gonna do that. We know every department is important. Every department provides a service for the customers. The taxpayers are the ones that are gonna feel the hit of this when they gotta wait for their tax bill, or they've gotta go to court over something and they can't file something, or their court date's backed up months, or whatever the case may be, or they gotta wait for an appointment to get services from somewhere. We don't want that to happen either. So we understand that, and we understand there are mandatory, the sheriff has to maintain a jail, they gotta do IT, you gotta do human resource. I mean, there are things we understand as part of the job, but we're not trying to say that any department is more important than the other. They all are here for a reason, because taxpayers demand those services from their government.
Melissa Binion, JFS Child Support. I have 2 questions. First, there was a reference made to a spreadsheet that Alex had sent out, or Alex used. I did figures already, but would you be willing to share that, Alex?
Absolutely.
So if you could email that to me, that would be great. Second, to Auditor Yoder and Christie. I'm assuming that you only need this stuff for child support, because JFS only gets the mandated share.
Right, mandated share is not gonna get changed, you can't do that.
Right, so I just want to be sure you don't need anything from me for JFS, just for child support.
Yeah, I have your letter already for, guys, that mandated share letter.
Okay.
Martha, Trumbull County Auditor, if you're going to send out another notice like you did, you may want to just attach that, like, to the
Sure.
public officials, because stating what needs to be given, you may want to attach that worksheet so they can, utilize it as they reassess their bill.
I will absolutely do that. I am gonna have to do a little bit of work, as anybody who's worked with me on that spreadsheet, Alex Stevens, Human Resources. Anybody, I know, anybody who's worked with me on that spreadsheet does know you have to change some things based off of your contract, I mean, I had to create, I think, 6 different levels for we have 6 unions in your contract and they all have different uses. So just be very careful. The workers' comp amount is different based off of your clerical, and I can give you those key guidelines, but just know it's not just a plug. You have to, and I know you all know this, but you have to make sure you take into account your certain nuances for your department. Yes, I have formulas in there.
We
Yes,
just have to
it
go through and
yes.
review it very
Yeah.
carefully.
So that's the only thing, and I'll put that on the email, but just be careful because if you just put in numbers, it's not gonna give you a realistic, you have to make sure you're looking into your contracts, what the percentage raises are, what your workers' comp percentage for police and fire and safety, it's an 18% first pickup, where for us it's 14%. There's different numbers.
And just so for us, one of the things we came up with, things that we realized is as
First
we did it was, if you do, like me, Martha Yoder, Trumbull County Auditor, if you do like me, you know, I had already implemented that pay freeze earlier. We didn't allow for that initially, and so in our updated spreadsheet, we did allow for it. So if you have someone who's at a pay freeze, like what I did with, you know, a non-union person, you've already chosen to do that as part of the, you know, what you're trying to do, I would put that on there as your budget, and that's what we did.
Sorry.
Larry D'Amico, Coroner's Office. So Commissioners, my department's a little bit odd. Most of my department is based on volume. Less volume, money left over at the end of the year stays in the general fund. More volume and more money comes out. I have no way to predict where we're gonna be 6 months from now. We could be very busy, we could be not busy. How do we design that budget? And I'm also working in a garage and costs come up that I can't even anticipate because it's pretty unusual. So what do we do with that?
Doc, I would think based on what you had from at least half of last year and what you've done traditionally with that, you can come up with an estimate of what your average is over the years, add the cost increases your department may have, and add that into there with that. I would stick with that. That is something we know it's flexible. But then again, fortunately, you're one of the lowest budgets of all the departments, so it isn't gonna affect us as much. I think you and Sam were the ones we had to cut the least because your budgets were the lowest and had less percentage wise than we can even think of cutting into.
So for example, I could give back $75,000, and I might run out in November if we happen to have a very busy year. That's I can't predict.
And that's not you're 75. What I'm saying is that's not gonna kill us in a budget. Someone running over 250,000, 300,000, that's what we're looking at.
A 7 Mark year competitor, a small amount like that is one of those things that, yeah, we can deal with within access sales tax and things like that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Doc.
Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it, but talking mandatory services, now we're into critical services. So everybody's gonna have to come in and they're gonna say, all these services are critical.
But-
And they're really not gonna cut their budget.
Well, and
That's-
I
that's what
understand
I'm-
that, we still did that with
But
that.
that's what I'm afraid is gonna happen. And then we're gonna come back as commissioners sitting here with the same figure that we have now, okay? Everything's critical, but we're gonna have to get into the critical cut.
Well, and.
Ultimately, we're gonna have
I
to.
mean, I don't want to,
make it.
but I think we're gonna have to.
And then
Because they're gonna say, this is mandatory and this is critical, and, you know, can't come back in and say, well, here we are at the same figure.
Martha Yoder, Trumbull County Auditor. That may be, and that's why I say an explanation of why it's critical, so that you guys can make that judgment.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're gonna have to make decisions that we're
Yep.
not gonna like.
Yep, I agree.
You know.
Well, that's why we're here. Yes, Andy?
Yes, Randy Law, Clerk Reports, just for my clarification. Obviously, you want our revised budget. Are we using like the spreadsheet that was presented by my predecessor and revise that during the budget hearings for the overall budget of our department coming out of general fund? In addition to, she also supplied the spreadsheets, and I'm using Alex's spreadsheets also for the payroll. You want both, or is that, do we submit that in an email to you? How are we doing that?
Mark, the County Auditor, I think at this point, unless the commissioners want something different, I think what I had prepared, I had my budgets ready to show them if they needed to see the more paper, but the bottom line. Bright line.
Do you want it broke out line by line like this, or does it matter?
That's up to the commissioners. What I had prepared was a bottom line. Basically, I did a narrative for them with my bottom line, an explanation of everything. And then if they want to look into it and try to go line by line and see that, that's up to them. I have that ready for them, but I also don't want to overwhelm them with paper and or in this case, digital. I don't want to overwhelm them with that, but that's kind of up to the commissioners. For us, for what we need for what we're gonna present, bottom line.
I don't think you could, yeah. bottom line,
Those two bright lines.
Me personally, we're not gonna wanna go line item by line item by line. I
So
mean, we don't know your,
you'll need to do that,
Yeah.
obviously.
Want a number?
Yeah,
we need a number. A
And-
lowest number.
Okay.
Yeah, but at some point, when they need to know what.
Absolutely.
And adjust
That's why I'm
the
saying
numbers
having
up
that,
on there.
and that's why I actually, what I prepared for today, Martha, you're cutting under. What I prepared for today was I have my payroll and I have my budget. An Excel spreadsheet with the budget, with every part of the budget, and an Excel spreadsheet with the thing, so that if you wanted that, I would have given it to you, we would have got it. Right? That's what I had prepared for today, as well as that narrative. What I'm looking at as far as presenting for you guys next week would be those columns, a column with one bright line and a column with the other, so you guys can see where it is.
Christy Sesteric, Auditor's Office. Just so everyone knows, the budget is available on central budget entry. You still have the capability of running that and sending it to Excel, or as I did for Auditor Yoder in our office, I ran something that we have access to, and I could put the revenues and expenses together so that you can go in and I'll put it in Excel, and then you can go in and adjust as you see fit for each line that's listed for your department. So just email me and let me know.
Okay, good. I'd like to see that and do that just so
We'll do.
easy and practical. Munis is a
Then you have your,
ongoing
yeah.
project
then you have your.
for some of us.
It is for all of us.
And then you have your
I
bottom
can
line.
see it's before you think. I do have one other quick question, clarification. As I explained at the last meeting, and I'm sure other departments have similar, I have 3 budgets, only one of them's out of the general fund. Do you want numbers out of these other budgets that you don't affect or not? You don't worry about that right now? Okay, I don't have any problem either way. I just didn't want to, I'm not prepared. I'll probably not.
This is Derek, Auditor's Office. I've been going through all of the budgets for the funds 002 through 995, just to make sure that those are in compliance with budgetary law. I have been reaching out to departments as I've been running into errors, so if I haven't reached out to you, it all seems to be pretty good.
Commissioners, Alex, Stephen Johnson Bush, I think if there's anything we need to walk away from here with, it's a clear, consistent message, because otherwise we're gonna have a little bit of spin like we had, you guys can make the decision. However, I feel it's extremely important to have 2 bottom line numbers. Your payroll employee numbers is one. Then your operational expenses is the other. So they can see what part of your budget, your big roll-up number is actual payroll employees and what percentage is operations. Because realistically, you should be looking to cut operations first right now, if you can. What I mean is consolidating services. I gave all that in the email. And then if not, we get to the bottom line where the commissioners know this is payroll, this is employees. Anything you cut from there on forward is cutting bodies, as seen in the pieces.
So
That's what I would suggest.
So, Mark, you're kind of here. So I think that pretty much is what, when I have this. And I mean, we could, everything that I cut for my second bottom line is people, all right? So I mean, basically the difference between the one bottom line and the other is payroll. I think we need, just to be clear, if you want them to see how much of it is how much of each budget is payroll, I would say then we're really getting 4 numbers. 4 columns. because we're gonna have the bright line where this is our budget. This is what we can do to provide, to continue providing services without a reduction in people, right? Then the part of that that's payroll is fine. I mean, I can see that. And then the same with bottom, right? So they can see the difference in the payroll, the difference in the bottom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm fine with doing what you're saying so that they can see that. But again, we have to be careful about too many numbers because it gets confusing for folks, right? But I get what you're saying. But so what we would do, what I have right now for them is very easily, I can do a third number. Or third and fourth.
Almost fell. Sorry.
So it would be right line, revised budget, then that would be without making any layoffs or anything like that. The portion of that bright line budget that is payroll. So they can see that number in contrast with the total budget, so they can see how much of our budget is payroll,
Mhm.
right? And then the second bottom line, bright line, which is we start cutting bodies and where there's a limit to how many bodies we can cut, right? And that's what I did. I figured out exactly who I could cut, exactly who I could do without. And so, who's not critical, who's not, you have two people doing the same job, one person will have to handle the job. It will slow things down, but we won't stop providing that service, right?
Can I just say one thing? Julie Green, I'm here to volunteer my staffs and my expertise in creating surveys. I can work with you, the commissioner, to come up with a template so that everybody has these answers. You don't have to hash them out here, and we can send it out via an email to get exactly down to what it is.
And
you're
that's
looking to
fine.
get an answer.
And that's fine, but then we also, the other part of that, Julie, is
I
that
understand.
they're gonna have to have narratives that they're gonna be saying. to folks.
Again,
So, but to
we
get
can
that,
create that.
what we need, right?
Yes.
I'm fine with that,
Yes.
but again, we wanna do it quickly, because we're
Yes.
telling people it's due.
It'll be done today.
Okay, and we're telling people to do 10 a.m. Wednesday, and that's fine, because that way everybody's on the same page, and I get that. But people are gonna need to understand, the commissioners need to understand what's mandatory and
I
what's
know.
not.
We'll do a draft based on what I've heard, and I'll send it out to you. You tell us what you want changed, and then you can send it out to everyone.
All right.
That way, everybody has the same
Commissioners okay with
questions
that?
and the
I'm
same
okay with
answers.
it. Please send it to our clerk so that if they have questions, here's what is happening. When these emails go out, this office starts getting a ton of phone calls and Lisa, would you want to expound on that a little bit? I mean,
I mean,
I hate to put you on the spot, but,
that's okay. It's just, I'm your clerk
right,
and most of the emails should
Please.
come from me.
Please.
Lisa Denunzio Blair, clerk. And when Alex sent the last email out to everyone, I think there was some confusion.
Right. so we
And
need to
so
communicate.
she was getting calls, Sheila Taylor was getting calls. So just to clarify everything, that it
Right.
should come.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, work
Um,
together.
But I think what Julie is doing or is proposing to do, I think that will hopefully eliminate some of those phone calls. Because if it's a pretty much a straightforward survey, this, and we make sure that people know, you need to be prepared to back up those numbers and why they are.
I think at the end of the day, the board needs to be clear.
Right,
It's
absolutely.
really that simple. What does the board want? And that's it. And we can take it from there, but
Well, I would like to know your opinion on that. What do you think?
I mean, I'm listening to 5 different people.
I know.
So I only did what you told me.
No, and that's what you should have did, and that's what you did, okay? And,
Yeah, so we don't get too confused.
Well,
with
I
this.
mean, you did involved with it from day one.
I truly
And that's
just
why
want,
I'm asking you, maybe you and I have a discussion.
Sure. I think that your clerk should send out communications. I absolutely have no qualms about that. But I do want to be very clear. I think we do have, Commissioner Bernard, you said this, we have 3 very different marching orders, even just from you 3. That becomes very complex, okay, for any department head. And that could be part of the operational issue here, okay? And I'm trying as your HR director to say, I see that. I hear all different wants, all different needs. I hear you talking for your department, and that's very true. But everybody else's might be just slightly different. And I understand that because I see all of those things. I work in depth with each and every one of these departments.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that we're being fair to everybody, that we're hearing the bottom line from everybody, and that we're being consistent in what message that we're given. Most of the time, we can solve anything. Organizations can solve anything if we have proper communication, proper expectations, and if everybody has a seat at the table and is appreciated. So I think we just need to get better at that. And clear roles and responsibilities are a priority as well.
Well, before that email goes out from the clerk, maybe you should take a look at it.
Well, and that's my thought, Martha, Trumbull County Auditor, is that Julie send her rough draft to you, me, and to Lisa. And the four of us communicate and come up with what we finally want to do, and then it come home. Right.
I think that's a good idea.
And we will get that.
But before the final draft comes out, I think the commissioners need to see it.
I don't disagree. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Right.
At the end of the day.
So we know what's.
Sure.
Correct. I'm just very concerned that, you know, we're giving a lot of different messages and I appreciate all of that. But at the end of the day, the BOC
We have
is
to
approving
clarify
this.
what we're doing.
Yes.
So the four of us will, after Julie writes it, we'll look at it and make sure that it's what we have interpreted for you to, that you want. Martha.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Um,
sorry.
do you want that final to come to you, to the Board of Commissioners? To come from Lisa, your clerk, or from Alex?
Once it comes from the clerk.
I
To
think it comes from the clerk,
the three of you. And then, I think we need to know if there's problems with it very quickly so that it can go out. So, and then once Lisa has confirmation, Lisa will send.
And hopefully before the final version goes out, you guys will iron out all.
Right. So hopefully you guys will be okay with it. We won't have to do any revisions, but if there are revisions, the four of us will take care of it, get it, and Lisa will get it back. All right?
And I just want to thank all the,
I've got a question, Randy Lockhart, of course, you want us all here Thursday, is it gonna be a group, or are you gonna assign a 15, 30-minute, whatever your period is to go over with the individuals?
I think we need to look at what we're getting in first.
Yeah.
And then, we need to digest it and then see.
You're gonna be here the whole day.
Well, remember, that was a 2-day. We divided, gave everybody.
Well, Commissioners,
time
what-
slot.
What I'd like to do is we do it, if we got questions, we can get them on the speakerphone or whatever, try to reach out to them to answer our questions, but I think that needs to be us crunching the numbers here alone, and then when we get to the last little bit of it.
What we have to do as commissioners is we have to say, well, this is what we have, and now we're gonna have, because we're gonna have to cut, you guys know we're gonna have to cut. I that's reality.
Are you gonna give us our numbers with of the departments you
Expect, well, I think basically you already have your numbers, I mean,
Well, but we did make some cuts, and I think they should look and see what we've already planned on.
We have Martha Yoder, Trumbull County Auditor, we have several different versions of that. I understand what people
They
are,
ought to see.
that's fine, and we can put that, we'll get that and we can attach it to what Lisa sends out. I'll have Christy prepare that, just a single spreadsheet of what we did the last time. That's fine.
Michelle, did you have something?
Just that, yeah, it would be
Okay.
nice to see what, each department is shading already.
Okay, so Commissioners Alex and Josie Bush, just to recap, this is going to be a pretty large, significant email. So Lisa and I, basically, we're just gonna have to sit together and hash through all this. But you're going to have the email, because there's a spreadsheet that I created that everybody wants. You're gonna have the spreadsheet, this spreadsheet. So there's gonna be a conglomerate of things. So just so everybody's listening, this is going to be a rather large email that you will need to do a deep dive and pay attention to each attachment, just because there's gonna be so many things in this one email, if that makes sense.
And with regard to the email itself, Martha Yoder, I guess what I wanna be looking at is the survey, just make sure that we're getting the information. The email itself, I'm not as concerned about that, for the board of commissioners, we just wanna make sure that we have exactly what we need to be able to present.
Is this something we can get out today? Because they're only gonna have tomorrow and Tuesday to work.
That's why I'm trying to-
Let's do Wednesday.
That's what I'm trying to say, commissioners. We'll,
Do the best we can.
yeah. We'll do the best.
Sam, I'm a Trumbull County Treasurer. Can IT maybe put the spreadsheets someplace that we can just go access them
Point,
instead of attaching?
Not
them?
everybody has their. Yeah.
We can try to do that. I don't know, you need to let us know, who has access to that, and I'll have to do that.
For this new JFS, can you send that to us?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say,
Yeah,
I,
just attach it, send it.
yeah, because I do,
Just attach
well,
some-
Commissioner, only because I deal with this, when I have to communicate with countywide, which I have to do very often, it is a little bit of a nuisance because I don't have everybody on the county system. So all the courts aren't on the county system, all of JFS, so I have to send them separate. So I
Becky will,
think,
or I'm sorry, Christie will prepare just the spreadsheet
Okay.
and we'll just do it.
But
It's
that
going to
is
be
a
a
good
single spreadsheet
Once
because
again.
it's just,
I only mentioned it because you said it's gonna be a large email with.
well, it's between everything it will be, but it's gonna be two attachments and a survey that they have to go to.
Okay. We want to thank all you, thank you all for coming and your understanding. Please work with us. We're gonna work with you. I suppose next Thursday, commissioners will assemble here and go over it again. Okay? Any other motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mr. Bernard.
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yes.
Have to